Welcome to the Inside Carolina Postgame podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. I've got Dewey Burke with me. Dewey, tough one down in Atlanta. Something about Atlanta is a wishy-washy place for North Carolina to have to go. They fall 74-73. Let's kind of work our way back. I want to get your opening thoughts, but I want to work my way backwards from the end there. All the way throughout the game. But just overall, North Carolina loses one. They probably could have stole there at the end. What you think?
Yeah, it's a foul. I mean, it's hard when games come down to the last possession and you point to that, and the cynic in all of us says Duke got that call on Saturday, almost a virtually identical play. Guard getting downhill, gets bumped by a big off balance. It's a foul. That's a foul the other 39 minutes of the game. So it's unacceptable not to make that call, let alone for the ACC probable player of the year, maybe the national player of the year. You get that call. You deserve that call. And that's 2 free throws, and we maybe sneak out of there with a win. Not a fan of the switch on the last defensive possession. We've been through that. Much rather see RJ fight over that and keep his man in front of him. Spread the floor with a 5 guarding a 1. You're at a disadvantage. And kid made a good tough shot. I give him credit, but if you're Mondo and you get that switch, make him shoot a 10-footer or 15-footer. Make him shoot a contested jumper when he got to the rim. So I hated the switch. I thought the play Hubert drew up was good. Got RJ going downhill. He probably had a 3 if he wanted it, but he tried to go to the rim and get contact, and he got fouled. So we'll get into the rest of the game. But your question was about the final couple possessions, and it's foul. I mean, it's straight up, it's foul.
Yeah, that's why I think I said on one of these podcasts, or maybe it was on the beat or whatever. That's why the ACC sucks overall, because the officiating's so inconsistent. I'm not a ref guy, and I'm going to ask you about the Elliot Cadeau situation as well. I'm not one of those people that say, oh, if the refs were this or the refs were that, my team would have won or whatever. But to your point, literally days ago, to make sure there was a top 10 game on Saturday, if you conspiracy theorists, Duke gets that call, yeah. and then RJ doesn't. To your point, RJ gets no respect from the officials in this league, and it's another reason why the ACC is just no good. And but the bottom line is North Carolina needs to play better. But let's talk about the Elliot Cadeau situation, because I tweeted something, and I believe this to be accurate in my limited knowledge that some people say I have. If you get the same official that calls the same foul on you 2 and then 3 times, you have to adjust whether or not you think it's a foul or not. And this is not just a Cadeau thing. This is anybody playing basketball, but especially a freshman learning the ropes. Dewey, your take there. You're a point guard. You played the game on the highest level with North Carolina. I just think it's a learning experience. That's the best way I can put it there. They needed him on the floor, and he wasn't there. But maybe that helps down the road.
Yeah, I said to you off air before he came on, it felt like all 5 foul calls were essentially the same. Like it was, he had 1 or 2 hands on the hip of the offensive player and they blew the whistle. You would like to see him adjust. And, you see sometimes when guys get ticky-tack hand check fouls called, they exaggerate it, by putting their hands way behind them just to show the refs, like, my hand is not on him. You would have liked to have seen him do something like that just to prove the point that his hands are nowhere near the guy he was guarding. But all 5 fouls felt the same, especially those first 3 happened in like 6 possessions, it felt like. So you'd like to see him adjust. He has shown a propensity to be foul prone at times throughout the year. This is a thing that freshmen do. They don't understand the whistle. They don't adjust. He's got a lot on his mind trying to run the offense. And so defensively adjusting to how a ref is calling the game and specifically calling him, I'm not going to say it's a lot to ask, but maybe just didn't enter his mind. And look, Seth played great when he came in, right? I think our offense is less dynamic, certainly without Elliott. You lose that penetration threat. He's better in the open floor, but Seth played well and certainly was more than serviceable. So Elliott's foul trouble was not why we lost the game. We lost the game, in my opinion. We shot the ball terribly. I mean, you look at the simple stats, take RJ out of it for a second, we shoot 17 for 54 in the game, which is, just abysmal. That's under 30%. Yeah, it is 51. Yeah, it's under 30%, right? Should we shoot like 27% for everyone not named RJ? Harrison and Cormac both shoot 3 for 14. I mean, if 2 of your 3 starters shoot 6 for 28 on the road, and then you shoot 9 of 17 from the line, it's hard to beat anybody. What's up, GB? So, look, frustrating. When it got down by 5 or 7, my phone explodes and everyone says, "Oh, well, I'd rather lose this one than Saturday." And, well, no, not when you're playing. Let me just explain that to everybody. Not when you're playing. There's no, "Oh, this is okay because we'd rather lose this one than Saturday." Like that thought process doesn't enter any player's mind, any coach's mind, any staff member's mind. That's not a thing. So people peppering these message boards with, "Well, I'd rather lose this one than lose." No, unacceptable to think that way. That's weak mentality. That's not how it works. You needed to win the game before you. And I just thought we were poor offensively. We allowed them to get some confidence. We're up 11. The crowd's out of it. We're playing fine. And we let them get back into it and get confident. So, I'll let Greg jump in, but we were I thought, abysmal offensively. It's not like they went overly crazy. They shot 41% from the field. We were just terrible offensively.
You play to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys on the message boards, get rid of that mentality. All of you, forget about that.
What's funny about that, Greg, is I guarantee you 99.9% of the people that haven't played the game at that level were thinking, well, if they're going to lay an egg, they might as well get it out of their system now. And I love Dewey's point there. Greg, this North Carolina team has lived on the road. They've won and they've grinded these games out. We started just to catch you up. We started talking about it should have been a foul call at the end, and then Elliot Cadeau's 5 fouls there was less contact in Elliot's 5 than there were in the last one from RJ. But your just overall take on what you saw from North Carolina as they limp home from Atlanta to get ready for a big one Saturday.
Yeah, I think what Dewey said about kind of the shooting issues kind of stand out. I mean, and I understand the fans are going to talk about the final play. I think there's some plays right there at the end that are worth talking about anyway. But I think where North Carolina lost this game, as Dewey mentioned, they get up by 11, the crowd's out of it. Georgia Tech went on a 46-27 run over the next 22 minutes. And at that point, Carolina's down 8. And give R.J. Davis credit. I mean, what a performance by him. To really kind of put the team on his shoulders and bring them back. And to expand a little bit on Dewey's stats about how poor the team shot other than RJ, if you look at just the second half, the numbers are even worse. RJ was 7 of 14. His teammates were 7 of 28. So his teammates shot 25% from the floor on the road in ACC play. That's just not going to get it done. And, some things to nitpick, but it is one of those things too. It's very difficult to bring your A game every single night. That doesn't mean it's okay to lose these games by any stretch, but it's very difficult to play at that high level game in and game out. And one of the benefits to having as much talent and experience that Carolina has is that most of the time your B game is going to be good enough to win. And I think you have to give Damon Stoudemire some credit. He took advantage of the switch there late to get their game-winning basket. And I think he made some good calls throughout the night that really gave them a chance. And as poor as Georgia Tech's record is, they did get a big win against Clemson, and they played Duke close twice. Mm-hmm. So they've shown the potential with those young guards to be a thorn. And they took advantage of some of North Carolina's sloppiness tonight to pull out a win.
Dewey, let me give you another stat. Greg always brings them. North Carolina layups, 8 for 22 layups. Mm-hmm. It reared its head again where they've had trouble finishing at the rim, where I felt like over the last several games when they've been able to grind these out, they have success there, whether it's Cadeau getting to the rim and making plays, RJ doing it. 8 for 22 at the rim against Georgia Tech.
Tommy, the stats tell the story, right? I mean, 8 for 22 at the rim. We both shot 17 free throws. We made 9. They made 15. There's 6 points right there. They killed us on the glass, 41-26, murdered us on the glass. So you shoot 36% from the field, 28% from three, 53% from the line, get out-rebounded by 15, shoot 8 for 22 on layups, and you're starting 3 and 4, shoot 6 for 28. On paper, you got no chance. So the fact that we had the ball with a chance to win and should have been at the line for 2 with the 95% free throw shooter maybe is actually somewhat lucky. I mean, it was weird. First 10 minutes looked like played well, made shots, moved the ball, got up 11, and then the air came out of it. And Georgia Tech got momentum and just kind of chopped it up. They switched defenses a lot, which, Tom, you texted me, so Stoudemire deserves credit for interrupting the rhythm of the game, certainly. But God, we just make 8 shots, guys. I mean, how many turnovers do we have total? Only 11. I mean,
11.
We couldn't make a shot, guys. We couldn't shoot, period.
And
it's a terrible place to play in Atlanta, always, somehow.
Yeah,
always.
and Dewey, Carolina actually ended up winning the rebounding battle 48-41 overall. They did.
What was I looking at?
I don't know. But Georgia Tech bench points 39-14.
And Dewey, Carolina had 1 turnover in the second half. They had 10 in the first half.
Oh, I was
which is
looking at
crazy.
assists. Sorry about that. So we actually out-rebounded them. But yeah, it just couldn't make a shot, guys. I mean, come on. Couldn't put it in.
And it is a make or miss. Let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about Cormac Ryan's shooting, and he was 3 for 10 on threes, but he's 3 for 14 overall. How imperative is it that Carolina gets somebody that can hit consistent shots from the outside, Greg, to offset RJ? I mean, RJ's 28, nobody else more than 9. Dewey's talked about the poor shooting all around, but the 3-point shooting for me is a little bit alarming at times for this team, despite being able to grind out games.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the issues is everybody kind of focuses on Cormac because he's not shooting kind of like he has been throughout his career. He's a little bit below that. But that's kind of there's more of a spotlight on that because Harrison Ingram has finally kind of regressed to the mean. I mean, if you look at what he's done from the 3-point line of late, it's just nowhere near as effective as he was, the first month or so of the season. And I think those two things combined with Harrison and Cormac struggling from outside, it puts this incredible amount of pressure on RJ. And look, give RJ credit. He's done a fantastic job really carrying the team, did so again tonight. But that's a little bit too much to ask for him to do. And yeah, I mean, who else are you going to get it from, right? Wojcik's just not getting enough minutes, and that's not really kind of his thing anyway. We know Cadeau's not necessarily an outside shooter. Certainly Trimble's not. Everett Withers. I keep calling him Everett. That's like the 4th time I've done that. He shot very, very strongly from 3 at Louisville last year. That's still asking a lot to expect him to give you much from the outside. And so, yeah, if Harrison and Cormac are both struggling, you're very limited. And given RJ's height, teams are able to run him off the line a little bit. So that is a little bit of an issue. You don't want 2 of your 3 main shooters struggling from the perimeter.
Tommy, I think this is not some revelation if you watch the game and know basketball a little bit. Cormac is in such a rush to me. If he could just take a millisecond to gather himself, I think he would shoot it as he's capable. Because I think his form is fine. He's typically on balance. He is going so fast. He's a bit of a frantic player anyway, and that serves him very well on the defensive end with hustle plays. He sticks his nose in there. He has to be a gigantic pain in the ass to play against. Just you can see that. We saw that at Notre Dame, right? Playing against me, God, this guy's annoying. So all of that serves him, but shooting is about rhythm, and gathering yourself. I mean, think about what it used to look like when Wayne Ellington would catch and shoot the ball. It was like poetic, right? It was like, God, look at that. The rhythm, PJ Hairston, the rhythm. these, great Rashad McCants, dare say his name, Jawad Williams, these guys that were elite shooters for us over the years. I remember watching those guys and being like, look at the rhythm. I mean, that looks like effortless. And Cormac, to me, that you wouldn't use that word. You would say, wow, he really shot that fast, and he looks kind of frantic, and maybe he could take a millisecond. And so, God, I'd love to see them find a way to get him to slow down just a half beat, especially on catch and shoots. He's in such a rush. I mean, he shoots it faster than anybody I can remember that's labeled a shooter. And yeah, I'd like to see him just take a beat.
Yeah,
Tommy, let me
old
add
golf
this real quick.
reference. It reminds me of when I play golf. People say, "Why are you so quick in your backswing?" I mean, it's like Cormac is that guy, that grip and rip golf swing that he'll strike one every once in a while, but if you just slow down a tick. Greg, go ahead.
So just to put some more numbers on this, Harrison, for example, in non-conference play, Harrison shot 48.9% from three, which is just ridiculous. He's at 30.2% in ACC play. So that's just a massive drop from where he had been. Cormac, as odd as it may sound, he's actually shooting better in ACC play than he was in non-conference. Neither are good, of course. He's at 30.9% from three in ACC play after tonight, and he's 30% on the season overall. But here's the concern for me with Cormac, kind of to both of your points about being rushed and seeming to be a little bit stressed. As of a week or so ago, he was shooting the best percentage from two of his entire career, as well as the best percentage of his career from the free throw line. That has started to diminish as well. And he's down to 40% from two after he was shooting above 50% in non-conference play. That to me says, okay, maybe that three-point shooting issue that he's dealing with is starting to filter down maybe to all of his shooting. That is not what you want to see.
Interesting numbers. Greg brings the numbers. I'm just here, and then Dewey, of course, bringing an excellent analysis. Let's talk about Johnny T-shirt for a second. Franklin Street, JohnnyT-shirt.com. Visit them, 10% off if you're an Inside Carolina premium subscriber. And then congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Get your small to mid-sized business shout out or a free assessment. And they'll do it if you're an Inside Carolina person. They give you that free assessment. Go to congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. 722 people here in the chat. Dewey, North Carolina loses this one. You can't change it. I mean, you'd like to win them all. But your thoughts here, and then Greg, I'll let you come in and get in on a question you have. You side texted me, so I'll let Greg ask the question before I move on to Duke. I defer to the great one, Greg Barnes.
Well, this is just a really a question that personally I want to know, and I want to preface this. I don't want people to jump on me. I am not suggesting that this is why Carolina lost the game. I think we can all agree RJ got fouled at the end. It was a good play design, and Carolina should have won the game with a couple free throws. That being said, when the kid hit the game winner, there were 7.7 seconds left. Now, somebody that Dewey may or may not have played for once told me, quote,
I know where this is going.
Our rule is, and for every team I've ever coached, is that if it's less than 7 seconds, we'll call a timeout. If there's more than 7 seconds, we're going to run. Why give the other team a chance to set their defense? Mm-hmm. Now, there were 7.7 seconds left, so we're right on that line anyway. But when RJ got the ball, was coming up the court, I was like, all right, attack the rim, RJ. Kind of in my Roy mode. And Hubert decides to call a timeout. Did that surprise you? And does that matter?
Yeah, it's a great question. I didn't hate where RJ was with the ball. Kind of, it was like almost like a secondary break situation. It wasn't direct transition because it was off a made basket, but he probably could have created. It seemed like he kind of was right in front of Hubert. Maybe could have crossed over, tried to get into the lane and get a shot off. And you certainly would feel that way had we not gotten a good look out of the timeout. But I thought the set he called was a good one. I liked they ran Ingram off of Mondo flash. They got it to him, not even high post. I mean, he was above the 3-point line. And I would imagine just said to RJ, hey, you're like a receiver on a corner. Pick your path, get yourself open, and you can take a handoff on either side and go make a play. And he did enough to get fouled. So I understand the question. I think we got a good look out of the timeout. And so what he drew up worked. 50-50 call, right? I mean, if RJ, dribbles in and shoots a 3 or shoots a 15-footer and misses, and there's, the other argument Coach Williams might make is you call a timeout there to give yourself a chance at an offensive rebound. And if RJ in the kind of the mid-transition moment goes and shoots, there's probably nobody there for offensive rebound, and the game's over. We didn't get an offensive rebound in out of the timeout, but we had a chance at it. Harrison was in there. So yeah, look, I like the play he drew up. We had success when I played with just playing it out, and if you got a dynamic guard, you trust him. I'm not suggesting Hubert doesn't trust him. I think it's a tough one. It's a toss-up, really.
And to Hubert's credit, they have usually after timeouts, they've gotten good looks and good sets, whether they've run a play like that or whatever.
I think they run good stuff. I agree, Tommy. I think they run good stuff, side out of bounds, out of timeouts. I mean, the use it or lose it rule, where you have to call the timeout in the first half if you don't get it. Hubert's taken that, and they've gotten a lot of good looks the last possession of the first half when he's drawing stuff up. So, I think, I actually think Sully has a big bit to do with that, just with his pro pedigree, because there's so much side out of bounds and timeouts where they advance the ball in the NBA that you have to have a library of that stuff. And I think Sully's been really helpful in that. So they got a great look. That's the bottom line, right? I mean, you can second guess it. They got a great look. He got fouled. Period. He got fouled.
Yeah, and that last point was going to be what I was going to add is that Roy said he took that approach because that's what the Dean always did. And he was just kind of following in. But Roy ran a lot of freelance. And Hubert is much more in the NBA mold. He calls a lot of plays. And I think that is a good example of what we saw in the game tonight of how Hubert's kind of really taken his approach and kind of owned it. And I agree. I think they came up with a very good play at the end. RJ should have been on the free throw line. I don't think there's any question about it. So, as I said, it's not a criticism, just that the different approach from what Roy did to what Hubert did tonight. I think for me anyway, it was pretty obvious, and I thought it was interesting.
Yep. Hey, did everything you can to win the game.
Yep.
And the problem that we've seen is you let there be some way that somebody not wearing a jersey on the field, on the court, or on the field can be involved or make a difference. Then it usually does not go well.
And what do we talk about all the time with football, Tommy? In one possession games, it doesn't matter if it's a really good team or a really bad team. Over the long haul, those are going to fall about 50-50. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a ref call. You're going to have a fluky shot, all these things. That's why the better teams tend to have bigger leads so you don't get in those situations.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm going to repeat something, Tommy, that I've said on this podcast. I don't know how many years we've been doing it, that Coach Williams used to say to us all the time. And had he been the coach and sitting in that locker room, I can hear him saying, it might have been a foul, it might not have been. There were plenty of other possessions, but guess what, guys? Good teams beat bad refs. He said it all the time. Yep. Good teams beat bad refs. I'm not saying we're not a good team, but good teams beat bad refs. So we shouldn't have been in that position. We're a better team. Shouldn't have come down to that possession. However, you deserve the call. So it's a tough one to go home feeling like you put a 95% free throw shooter on the line. But good teams beat bad refs. We shouldn't have been in that spot.
We could have didn't talk about Jalen Washington. I mean, that got me out of my seat. If he could do more of that. But I want to get out here about 30 minutes in, Dewey, and I know you've got things to do. 770 folks here in the live chat. Let's talk about Duke. How do you flush that as a player and move on to what everybody always points to as the big one, Dewey?
Very easily. Yeah, I mean, this bothers you. This bothers you on the bus to the airport, bothers you on the plane, bothers you, and then, you pull back into the Smith Center, and for us, coach would walk. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if I've ever shared this. So when we would get back home from road trips, everybody else had to get off the bus, meaning, radio guys and trainers and everybody. But we all stayed in our seats. We didn't never get up until coach came back and gave us one last thought to go home with. That was every time we got home from a road trip. And so if Hubert has continued that, everybody will get off when they get to the Smith Center at 2:00 in the morning, and he'll walk back and he'll leave them with one thought. And it won't necessarily be about Georgia Tech, right? It's on to the next one at this point. So, young kids, you forget about it. You wake up tomorrow morning, you're ready to go. They're probably off tomorrow, and then practice Thursday, Friday. So you need no motivation for this one. It's all anybody's been talking about all week. And so, everybody wants to talk about this was a trap game. Guys, I don't even know what that means. You only get so many of these. You only get so many times to put the jersey on. And so those thoughts, those things, maybe they're looking past them. Like, I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the locker room. It's not a thing, guys. You get to put this jersey on 36 times if you're lucky. It's just, that's not a thing. And so, speaking of put the jersey on, there's nothing like putting it on for this one. So that atmosphere will be rocking. 2 top 10 teams. We're both good. Both probably not great, but we're both good. And yeah, I'm excited.
Not a whole lot more to add to Mr. Burke's comments there. Carolina Duke, I guess 6:30 in the Smith Center on Saturday. I actually have tickets. Can you believe that it's the first time in 22 years that I'll see a Duke game in person?
Get that man in the arena.
I know, really. So it's either going – well, I take that back, Dewey, because where were we in April of 2022?
I was going to say, yeah, we were there together for that one.
Yeah, I will say in the Smith Center. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So it'll either be the first in a new string or the last in a long time. It'll be fun to watch either way. Dewey Burke, Greg Barnes, Carolina falls to Georgia Tech, 74-73 down in Atlanta. Duke's next. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Shout out to Congruity and to Johnny T-Shirt.